This is a gray immortal. No wonder I felt a slightly familiar aura just now. Just like Moyu from the Infernal Frost Immortal Manor, this purple-robed body had also belonged to a gray immortal. His gaze roamed back and forth between the two bodies, following which he turned his attention to the baleful chi in the surrounding area. And he immediately realized that these two bodies were the source of the terrifying baleful chi in the ravine. Hanli didn't get too close, keeping his distance, as he made a lap around the gray immortal's body, and he didn't spot many injuries on the body. In fact, the only one he could see was an uneven wound on its right temple, and that wound seemed to have been somewhat corroded, as there was a dark green coloration on its jagged edges. Judging from what he could see, it appeared that the giant rat and this gray immortal had fought in a battle countless years ago, ultimately leading to their mutual demise. Perhaps this enormous ravine had been created during the course of their battle. Han Li withdrew his gaze from the gray immortal as he returned his attention to the giant rat carcass, and a contemplative look appeared on his face. Even though it's already been dead for countless years, its body is still giving off such formidable spiritual power fluctuations. If I can get Jin Tong to devour it, perhaps she'll be able to advance further in her cultivation base. With that in mind, Hanli cast his gaze toward the rat's two massive front teeth, then raised a hand, and an azure bamboo cloudswarm sword appeared in his grasp. He injected his immortal spiritual power into the sword before lashing out at the base of the pair of front teeth, and a sharp clang rang out as a burst of dark green light erupted out of the base of the teeth. A wave of formidable sword chi surged through the air alongside the eruption of dark green light, and a burst of intensely corrosive energy fluctuations surged forth from within the teeth. A burst of azure light rose up around Hanli's body, and only then was he able to keep this corrosive aura at bay. Close to 20 seconds later, the corrosive aura fluctuations gradually subsided, and an elated look had appeared on Hanli's face. Even though he hadn't gone all out in that attack just now, it was still quite extraordinary that the rat's teeth had managed to remain completely unscathed. After a brief pause, Hanli summoned 3 azure bamboo cloudswarm swords at once, then combined the 3 into a single sword. Arcs of electricity surged over the sword alongside bursts of formidable sword chi as he lashed out once again at the base of the teeth, and only then did the pair of teeth fall out of the giant rat's mouth. Hanli gently exhaled as he stowed the swords and the pair of front teeth away, then made his way over to the body of the gray immortal to conduct a closer inspection. The purple robe on the body appeared to be made from quite an exceptional material, but unfortunately, it was already ruined. Hanli swept a sleeve through the air, releasing a burst of azure light to flip the body over, and a gray cloth pouch fell out. An elated look appeared in Hanli's eyes as he hurriedly picked up the cloth pouch before injecting his spiritual sense into it. And sure enough, it was a storage pouch. He emptied the contents of the storage pouch onto the ground, and to his slight dismay, it only amounted to an unexpectedly small pile of items, most of which were materials that were either gray or black in color. Hanli swept his gaze over the pile of items, and several fist-sized black crystals suddenly caught his interest. The crystals were giving off a faint black glow that seemed to be capable of devouring all of the surrounding light, and they were also releasing formidable law power fluctuations. These were none other than black marrow crystal, the primary ingredient for refining Origin Void pills. Furthermore, these black marrow crystals were clearly of a far superior quality to the ones that Worm 3 had given him. Hanli swept a sleeve through the air, releasing a burst of azure light that picked up one of the black marrow crystals for a closer inspection, then stowed all of the black marrow crystals away. Outside of the black marrow crystals, most of the materials on the ground were unfamiliar to Hanli, but many of them were giving off powerful energy fluctuations that weren't inferior to those of the black marrow crystals. In particular, there were 3 items that were giving off energy fluctuations that set them apart from everything else. One of these items was a gray bone that was around a foot in length. It was extremely hard, and if it weren't for the gray patterns present on its surface, it would appear no different from a normal rock. It was clear that this was a very ancient artifact, but Hanli had no idea what type of creature the bone belonged to. The second item was a large black spirit flower with crimson spirit patterns on all of its flower petals, and they connected together to form the design of an unsettling, smiling face. The final one of the three items was a vial of gray liquid. A layer of gray flames could be seen on the surface of the liquid, but it was somehow giving off an intense chill that could be felt even through the vial. The auras of these materials were completely different from those of normal spirit materials, so Han Li could only presume that these things could only be found in the Gray Realm. After conducting a brief inspection, he stowed all of these materials away, and the only things that remained on the ground were a pair of immortal treasures and a black jade box. One of the immortal treasures was a black spear with an antiquated shaft and a gleaming black spearhead, within which a red mark could be seen, giving off formidable killing intent. The other immortal treasure was a gray veil that was as thin as a cicada's wing, and it was etched with numerous star designs that were giving off a faint gray glow. Hanli bent down to pick up the black spear, but to his surprise, it was extraordinarily heavy, almost comparable in weight to his heavy water true axis. He mustered up some more strength to pick up the black spear, then thrust it forward thrice in rapid succession, and three vibrant spear projections instantly emerged before exploding one after the other, causing the nearby space to tremble violently. Hanli's eyes immediately lit up upon seeing this, and he began injecting his immortal spiritual power into the spear. But the influx of immortal spiritual power didn't draw any reaction out of the spear. Hanli raised an eyebrow upon seeing this, but it then occurred to him that the energy in a gray immortal's body had to have been completely different from immortal spiritual power, so this was most likely a weapon that could only be used by a gray immortal. With that in mind, a disappointed look appeared in his eyes, and he was just about to stow the spear away when he suddenly noticed that a thin layer of black light had appeared on its surface. As it turned out, while injecting immortal spiritual power into the spear, some of the baleful chi in his immortal acupoints had also surged into it, and that had drawn a slight reaction out of the spear. Could it be that this weapon can be powered by baleful chi? With that in mind, Hanli released the pent-up baleful chi in his body, and it began to swirl around him as a cloud of black mist. He then slowly guided the baleful chi into the spear, and the black light emanating from it instantly brightened significantly. At the same time, the red mark in the spearhead also began to glow radiantly, while releasing strands of crimson light that circled around the tip of the spear incessantly. To Hanli's surprise, this weapon really could be powered using his baleful chi. However, he could tell that this was a weapon of an extremely high caliber, and that he was only able to tap into a small portion of its power. After stowing the black spear away, he picked up the gray veil, which was as soft and insubstantial as a cloud and as light as a feather. Hanli inspected the veil briefly, then injected his baleful chi into it, and a layer of gray light instantly emerged over the veil, which had also become several times thicker than before. At the same time, a series of antiquated patterns appeared on its surface, and in contrast with normal spirit patterns, these ones seemed to be far more haphazard, but also somehow more profound. In this thicker form, the veil was still very soft and pliable, but also extremely resilient, indicating that it was an exceptional defensive material. Right at this moment, a curious look appeared in his eyes as his gaze settled upon the patterns on the veil's surface. These patterns were somewhat familiar to him, and he felt as if he had seen them before somewhere. It didn't take long before he recalled exactly where he had seen something like this before, and he immediately summoned a silver jade box, within which was a piece of soft material. This was none other than the mysterious gray cloth that he had obtained from Xianxia. He spread the gray cloth open, and there were some enigmatic patterns etched on its surface. These patterns were slightly different from the ones on the veil, but it was clear that they were of the same style. Looks like this gray cloth is also from the Gray Realm. With that in mind, Hanli injected his baleful chi into the cloth, but it displayed no response. Hanli raised an eyebrow upon seeing this, and he began to wonder if he was mistaken. However, He continued to persevere, injecting more and more baleful qi into the gray cloth, but even after a full 15 minutes had passed by, the cloth still wasn't displaying any reaction. Hanli grew a little disheartened upon seeing this, and he was just about to withdraw his baleful qi when a layer of faint gray light suddenly appeared over the cloth's surface. A layer of light so faint that it was barely detectable at all. Hanli's eyes immediately lit up upon seeing this, and he took a deep breath before redoubling his efforts, further increasing the outflow of baleful qi. The light emanating from the gray cloth gradually became brighter and brighter, and the antiquated patterns on its surface also slowly lit up while becoming clearer and clearer. However, even as Hanli continued to inject more baleful qi into the gray cloth beyond this point, the light emanating from it didn't become any brighter, nor did the antiquated patterns on its surface become any clearer. It looks like I don't possess sufficient baleful qi to fully reveal what's on the cloth, Hanli thought to himself, then stopped what he was doing and inspected the gray cloth for a while longer before stowing it away again. The cloth was something that Hanli had obtained by chance anyway, so it would naturally be great if he could uncover its secrets. But even if he couldn't, it wasn't going to weigh on his mind. After that, he stowed the gray veil away as well, then picked up the black jade box, which was sealed by a gray talisman.